Miami Beach is known for a lot of things. Beautiful sunsets over the Atlantic, Art Deco architecture painted in pastels, trendy nightclubs where celebrities party until dawn, and miles of pristine white sand where tourists from around the world come to escape reality. But on December 13th, 2022, someone walking along that famous beach discovered something that would haunt them forever. A bright pink suitcase, partially buried in the sand near Collins Avenue and 23rd Street. At first glance, it looked like lost luggage, the kind of thing that happens in a busy tourist destination. Maybe someone forgot it after a beach day, or it fell off a boat. But when Good Samaritans opened the suitcase hoping to find identification so they could return it to its owner, they found something infinitely worse. Inside that pink suitcase was the body of a woman, stuffed inside, discarded like trash on one of the most photographed beaches in America. Welcome back to Crime Scout. What I'm about to tell you is the story of Daniela Tabares, a 28-year-old Colombian woman whose life ended in violence, whose body was hidden in a suitcase and left on a beach, and whose murder exposed a dark underbelly of Miami's party scene that most tourists never see. If you're here because you want true crime told with respect for the victims and a commitment to facts, you're in the right place. Make sure you subscribe and hit that notification bell, because we don't just tell stories, we honor the people behind them. Let's talk about what happened to Daniela Tabares. Daniela Tabares was living what many people would consider a dream life in Miami. She was young, beautiful, vibrant, and loved the energy of South Beach. Originally from Colombia, Daniela had embraced the Miami lifestyle, the nightlife, the beach culture, the international community. She worked in the hospitality and service industry, like so many young people trying to make it in Miami, a city that's expensive and competitive but also exciting and full of possibility. By all accounts, Daniela was friendly, outgoing, and had her whole life ahead of her. But like many young women navigating Miami's nightlife scene, Daniela was also vulnerable in ways that wouldn't become apparent until it was too late. On the night of December 10th, 2022, just 3 days before her body would be discovered, Daniela was out in South Beach. Security cameras and witness accounts would later place her at several popular nightlife spots along Ocean Drive and Collins Avenue, the heart of Miami Beach's entertainment district. She was seen with various people throughout the night, moving between clubs and bars, part of the transient nightlife crowd that defines South Beach after dark. At some point that night, Daniela crossed paths with a man who would end her life. When the pink suitcase was discovered on December 13th, Miami Beach police responded immediately. The scene was surreal and horrifying. A busy beach where families played and tourists sunbathed was now a crime scene. The medical examiner determined that the woman inside the suitcase had been dead for at least a day or two, and her death was clearly a homicide. She had suffered blunt force trauma and showed signs of strangulation. Whoever killed her had then stuffed her body into the suitcase and dumped it on the beach, either hoping it wouldn't be found or simply not caring. The identity of the victim wasn't immediately known, which is often the case in a transient city like Miami where people come and go constantly. But investigators worked quickly, using fingerprints, dental records, and missing person reports. Within days, they identified the victim as Daniela Tabares. Her family in Colombia was notified, and the devastating news began to spread through Miami's Colombian community. Miami Beach police immediately launched a homicide investigation, pulling surveillance footage from businesses and buildings along the beach and throughout South Beach. What they found was crucial. Multiple cameras had captured a man wheeling that distinctive pink suitcase along Collins Avenue in the early morning hours of December 12th, about 36 hours before it was discovered. The man was clearly struggling with the weight of the suitcase, which makes sense given its horrific contents. He was seen dragging it, stopping frequently, looking around nervously. At one point, the footage showed him attempting to bury the suitcase in the sand. These images were released to the public, and the response was immediate. Tips started coming in, and investigators began to piece together the timeline. The man in the surveillance footage was identified as Alejandro Augusto, a 28-year-old Miami resident originally from Cuba. Investigators discovered that Augusto had recently been involved with Daniela, though the exact nature of their relationship, whether it was romantic, transactional, or simply social, remained unclear. What became clear very quickly was that Augusto was connected to Daniela's death and the disposal of her body. On December 16th, just 3 days after the suitcase was found, and less than a week after Daniela's murder, Alejandro Augusto was arrested and charged with second-degree murder. According to the arrest affidavit and subsequent court documents, investigators had gathered substantial evidence linking Augusto to the crime. Surveillance footage placed him with the suitcase. Witnesses came forward saying they'd seen Augusto and Daniela together on the night she disappeared. Most damning of all, forensic evidence connected Augusto to both Daniela and the suitcase. When police executed a search warrant on Augusto's residence, they found additional evidence suggesting a violent altercation had taken place there. Blood evidence, signs of cleanup attempts, and other physical evidence painted a picture of what had happened. According to investigators' reconstruction, Daniela had been at Augusto's residence, an argument or altercation occurred, and Augusto killed her. He then placed her body in the pink suitcase, which some reports suggest may have belonged to Daniela herself, adding another layer of tragedy to an already horrific crime. Augusto then transported the suitcase to the beach and attempted to hide it, but in a city filled with surveillance cameras and constant activity, his actions were captured on video. The arrest brought some measure of relief to Daniela's heartbroken family in Colombia and to the Miami community that had been shocked by such a brazen disposal of a human body. But it also raised disturbing questions about safety in Miami Beach, particularly for young women navigating the nightlife scene. How many other young women had been in dangerous situations with men they barely knew? How many had been lucky enough to escape situations that could have turned deadly? Daniela's murder was a stark reminder that behind Miami's glamorous facade of luxury hotels and exclusive clubs, there exists a darker reality where violence against women often goes unnoticed until it's too late. The case also highlighted issues around Miami's transient population, the challenges of tracking people who move frequently, and the vulnerability of immigrants and newcomers who may not have strong support systems or familiarity with local resources. As the legal proceedings moved forward, more details emerged about both Daniela and Augusto. Daniela's friends and family described her as someone who trusted people easily, who saw the best in others, and who was trying to build a life in a new country. She sent money back to family in Colombia, worked hard, and dreamed of success. Augusto, on the other hand, had a more complicated background. While he didn't have an extensive violent criminal history, there were indications of a volatile personality and previous encounters with law enforcement. The prosecution began building a case for trial, though there was discussion of plea negotiations. The evidence against Augusto was substantial. The surveillance footage showing him with the suitcase, the forensic evidence linking him to Daniela, and the crime scene, the physical evidence from his residence, all pointed to his guilt. The image of him struggling to drag that pink suitcase containing Daniela's body along one of America's most famous beaches became an iconic and haunting symbol of the case. For the people of Miami Beach, the discovery of Daniela's body was traumatic, in a way that's hard to articulate. Miami Beach is a place where people go to have fun, to relax, to celebrate life. Finding a murder victim's body in a suitcase on the sand violated that sense of place and safety. Parents became more protective of their young adult children. Women became more cautious about who they trusted. The Colombian community in Miami mourned one of their own and grappled with the violence that had taken her life. Vigils were held for Daniela, and her story was shared widely on Spanish-language media and within immigrant communities as a cautionary tale about the dangers young women face. The pink suitcase itself became a symbol that people couldn't forget. Photos of it on the beach, partially buried in sand with crime scene tape around it, circulated widely. It was such a jarring image, something so ordinary, a piece of luggage, that millions of people use for travel, repurposed as a container for a murdered woman's body. It spoke to the dehumanization inherent in the crime, the way Daniela had been reduced to something to be hidden and discarded. As of the time I'm recording this, Alejandro Augusto's legal case has been proceeding through the Miami-Dade court system. He has been held without bond, and prosecutors are pursuing justice for Daniela. The legal process in cases like this can take years, with motions, hearings, and the possibility of trial or plea agreements. Daniela's family, living in Colombia, has had to navigate this process from afar, relying on victim advocates and the prosecutor's office for updates, unable to easily attend court proceedings due to distance and immigration status complexities. The murder of Daniela Tabarez is more than just another crime story. It's a reminder of the vulnerability of young women, especially immigrants trying to build lives in new places. It's a story about how quickly a night out can turn deadly when someone encounters the wrong person. It's about a city that markets itself as paradise but has the same dangers, the same violence, the same evil that exists everywhere. For those of us watching this case, there are lessons to take away. Trust your instincts about people. Stay with friends. Let people know where you are. Don't go to unfamiliar places with people you don't know well. These seem like obvious safety tips, but in the moment, in the excitement of nightlife, or the thrill of meeting someone new, these precautions are often forgotten. Daniela's death was preventable. If Augusto had been a different person, if she'd been with friends, if circumstances had been slightly different, she'd still be alive today. But we can't change what happened. We can only honor Daniela's memory by telling her story, by demanding justice, and by working to prevent similar tragedies. If this case has affected you, if you're thinking about Daniela and the senseless violence that ended her life, please give this video a like and share it. Her story deserves to be told, not for sensationalism, but so that her life is remembered and so that maybe, just maybe, someone else will be more cautious and avoid a similar fate. Subscribe to Crime Scout if you haven't already, because we're committed to covering these cases with the respect and depth they deserve. Stay safe out there, trust your instincts, and never take your security for granted. This is Crime Scout, signing off.